Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
From a nickname to a meme to a Senate floor rebuttal to merchandise. Today, the Kentucky Democratic Party rolling out its new line of Moscow Mitch merch, targeting Mitch McConnell. Just say "Niet" to Moscow Mitch. Buttons, stickers, T-shirts, even a brown Cossack hat on offer. Of course, we don't think it's real fur. We don't have an answer from the Kentucky Dems. But all of this was a quick merchandising turnaround time. The whole Moscow Mitch thing started within the last week after McConnell blocked plans to try to protect American elections from Russian interference. Senator Wyden calling McConnell Russia's biggest ally in its quest to infiltrate America's elections again. A Washington Post columnist went further under the headline, Mitch McConnell is a Russian asset, claiming the Kentucky Republican is arguably more than any other American doing Vladimir Putin's bidding. In McConnell's home state, Democrats are piling on with the Moscow Mitch meme, and that phrase got a boost on television and social media. Mitch McConnell is not a Russian asset. He's even backed a foreign policy critical of Putin, at least back in the day until Trump came along. And that is the issue. McConnell's enraged over these attacks, taking even to the Senate floor to blast it as modern-day McCarthyism, and some Senate reporters who cover all this closely said it was fiery by McConnell standards. But any serious suggestion of foreign loyalty is obviously provocative, and that's the part of this which goes to speculating on motives. But top Democrats, along with a lot of national security officials, say this is really about what McConnell's doing, not why, and what he keeps doing is blocking votes on bills to protect U.S. elections. That's what Bob Mueller recently warned is an issue because he says we're under attack by Russia. But it's not just him. Take Trump's hand-picked FBI Director Chris Wray, who recently said flatly more must be done to stop the Russian meddling for 2020. Or if you want another source, consider the Senate Intelligence Committee led by Mitch McConnell's leadership team, which released a bipartisan report that says Russian activities demand renewed attention to vulnerabilities in U.S. voting infrastructure. Many experts are concerned about all that real stuff, outraged even. But apparently not Mitch McConnell. What outrages him is the nickname, with the New York Times reporting he's unusually incensed, seething over this nickname. Now, few people are really looking for more personal attacks or name-calling in our politics, but it does seem like this particular battle, with its attendant name-calling, could be accruing political traction for a policy push that might otherwise be on the back burner in, yes, Mr. McConnell's Senate. So given what we know about 2016 and what we are being warned about this coming 2020 election, should the U.S. take any further action to protect its democracy? Well, we turn now to U.S. Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Ari.
What is important about these bills and what they'd accomplish, and why is Mitch McConnell blocking them?
Well, first of all, Mitch McConnell can put all of this to rest by bringing this key legislation to the floor. What I will tell you, having served on the Intelligence Committee for some time now, as of right now, I believe foreign hostile actors are going to make what happened in 2016 look like small potatoes in 2020. I think when you look at their capacity, for example, to interfere with voter registration databases, to hack social media, we have very serious threats, and I want to make sure that American voters, not foreign hackers, decide our elections.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that, it's concerning. What does that look like, particularly on the registration front? Your committee says they went after the voting systems in 50 states, but we've been appraised repeatedly of the idea that, well, they didn't change any tallies. So should people
nobody
say,
go ahead. Nobody can really say that, Ari, because they didn't do what are called forensic analyses. But let me give you a very recent example. Recently, the entire United States Senate went to a classified briefing. It was a classified briefing. All of the experts in the Trump administration came. I can't get into details, but the whole message from those key officials was nothing to look at here. No big deal. We just don't have to worry. We're taking care of everything. Just a few days later, there was an exhaustive analysis indicating that thousands and thousands of outdated voting systems that were using Windows 7 were being used all over the country, and the characterization from experts were those systems were ripe for hacking.
You have now called the new intelligence pick by Donald Trump, Congressman Ratcliffe, the least qualified ever. What are your concerns about him, and where does that go?
Well, Ari, let me make a modification in that statement. He is very qualified to do great damage to the credibility of the intelligence system. If you look at all his conspiracy theories, he's got ideas for secret societies, for example. In the FBI, he thought there was nothing to the Mueller report. He said, in fact, that the Russians were trying to harm Donald Trump when that clearly wasn't the case. I mean, what the DNI, the head of national intelligence, is responsible for is collective intelligence analysis. He works with all of the agencies, and somebody with Mr. Ratcliffe's views can do a lot of damage to the credibility of American intelligence at a time when the world is a pretty dangerous place.
Yeah. I also want to get your views on something we mentioned at the top of the hour. We are learning about these contacts between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, but we're learning about it from the Kremlin, not from the White House. Here's the Kremlin press service, I mentioned this earlier, saying the Russian president assessed a move about fighting wildfires on the part of the U.S. president, a guarantee of future restoration of bilateral relations. The Russian and U.S. presidents agree to continue these contacts. How striking is it that as a country we're getting this only from the Kremlin, and does it concern you?
Certainly. I can't get into any details about these kinds of classified matters. But again, let's talk about what we know on the record. I mean, the Trump campaign was not straight with the American people during the campaign of 2016 with respect to the Moscow Tower project, where clearly there was an interest in trying to secure opportunities for the Trump family because they didn't think they were going to win the election. So I can't get into this breaking story, can't get into classified matters, but just look at what's on the record.
It is Thursday, the 1st of August of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life, and one other issue is in order here. Stop being so bigoted and prejudiced against the grit. We live in a liberal democracy, and everything is given equal protection and due process, and nothing could be more duly processed than the grit. So please, among grains, no better, no worse. Well, I don't know. Better is always a personal opinion now, isn't it? I love the grit, but I love everything. I love barley. I love everything. Everything. Except for maybe sea cucumber. Tried sea cucumber once in my mid-20s. And I will eat it now out of, politeness to a host. And yes, I do attend those kind of dinner parties in which it may be part of the fare. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that I've ever ordered again. It's just something about the texture. I love the taste of the sea, la mer. on other foodstuffs. It's just that particular texture. It was just, and I love aspics. That kind of gelatinous, mold. I love that, but there was just something about the sea cucumber I didn't like. Other than that, I eat everything. Monkey brains? Probably not. Probably not. Not gonna have like the little monkey brains. You gotta have a special spoon for the monkey brains, I'm sure. And who carries around the special spoon for monkey brains? You just don't do it normally. So I'd probably pass on that. I could just say, well, I don't have a spoon. And somebody would say, here's a spoon. And then what would I do? Well, out of politeness to a host, if somebody is serving you monkey brains with a special spoon, I think the politeness is the last thing on their mind. I think fealty may be the underlying motivation for survival in a situation like that, and I would hope that I would avoid falling into that. But if one were, I don't know. I guess you could, when in Rome. But you're in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We don't serve monkey brains with or without a special spoon. We have uplifting fare, which at the same time might get you a little agitated and riled up enough to go out and vote, because that's ultimately what we need to do. Apparently, that guy, the GOP, the head of the GOP, Mike McCarthy, from my former state of California. God, that's hard to say. Basically was going on Fox. Does he go on the other network, the EONN and Sinclair? Probably. But has floating this gaslit lie that the Democrats have had, 200 some odd days and have not introduced one bill, haven't done anything. All they want to do is impeach. Well, actually, they've submitted over 100 bills, and every single one went into Moscow Mitch's trash can. Wastebasket. I think on the East Coast it's a wastebasket. On the West Coast it's a trash can. I think. But so you have Mike McCarthy out there gaslighting the nation that the Democrats only want to impeach Trump. No, we don't want to only impeach Trump. We also have to impeach Pence, Kavanaugh, and I got to tell you, every other mobbed up member of the Republican mob family. And we're going to do it by following the NRA laundered Russian rubles and Mike McCarthy. What's in your wallet, comrade? What's in your wallet? Well, we better get on with what else is here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Well, the senator of my birth state and the current state that I reside in now, Ron Wyden, took Mitch McConnell to task there, and also Ratcliffe and a few others, by the way. And it is not hyperbole. Mitch McConnell has earned the moniker Moscow Mitch. Earned it. It's not just bestowed. He earned it. The old-fashioned way. Yeah. Turn. On the rest of the menu, the North Carolina Republican operative, already charged in a ballot fraud scheme, was just charged with ballot rigging in another race. I wonder how many other races he may have been involved with some ballot rigging in North Carolina. Inquiring minds would like to know. While overall crime in America has declined, violent crimes by white supremacists hit a decade high under Trump. Really? And the acting Border Patrol chief testified at a Senate hearing that reports on immigrants suffering in Trump's gulags is demoralizing for his staff. After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where the 32-year-old landmark INF Arms Treaty is set to implode tomorrow, Friday, as the Pentagon eyes building new and better intermediate missiles of mass destruction, make America great again, and glow in the dark. Or maybe we already do. And You're not getting your money from Equifax because the government never really wanted you to. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page, you will notice the chat room link right there by the social media scroll, and deftly placed there, I might add. And the chat room link is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the page from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the Patreon link, and if you could please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, your recurring contribution helps our station continue resisting as the founders originally intended, even before Scalia ever heard of the term original intent. That's right, folks. We're part of the fifth column. Are we fifth columnists? Well, I shall have to remind folks that indeed the only part of the government that's not really a part of the government that is enshrined in the Constitution of the United States of America is a free press. And I should also remind you that a free press does not come free. Not in this construct and plane of existence. Everything costs. And your recurring contribution allows us to pay the bills, so at least for now, they allow us to resist as was originally intended. So thank you for your generosity in allowing us to do that. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do so. It's so simple. Just go to @NetrootsRadio, and Tom takes care of that. And I have to tell you, we're forever grateful that he does that. Wow. I have to take care of Justice Putnam, because who would take care of @Justice Putnam on Twitter? Yeah, I got to do it. But you know what else I do? I also post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and that is a very integral part of this multimedia operation, because that's where the source material is. It's like the homework and their footnotes. You always got to check the footnotes. And please do check out that show notes and links diary, because I will also post the links on social media in that 10-minute interim period, sometimes a little over. And we call that in the profession the scramble period. Yes, indeed. Or scramble block. You can call it that too. Both are equally understandable. In the biz, if you would like to follow the show on Twitter, do so @CookbookWest. And most importantly, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, iTunes, YouTube, and wherever podcasts can be found. They're everywhere. Millions, maybe billions by now. All right. Well, let's open up this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Well, this article comes our way by way of alternate, originally out of Salon by Ego Durish. North Carolina Republican operative already charged in a ballot fraud scheme that voided a congressional election was hit with numerous new charges related to another race where he is accused of election rigging. Leslie McCrae Dowless. Oh, wow, that's a familiar name. Why? Because he was all over the news. Who worked for Republican Mark Harris in the latter's bid to win North Carolina's 9th congressional district in 2018 before the election was nullified due to mounting evidence of ballot fraud, has been indicted on 2 counts of felony obstruction of justice, perjury, solicitation to commit perjury, conspiracy to obstruct justice, and possession of an absentee ballot. The Raleigh News and Observer reported the new charges stem from his work for Harris in the 2018 general election. Dowless was previously indicted on 3 counts of felonious obstruction of justice, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of possession of an absentee ballot in connection to his work for Harris in last year's Republican primary, and then for his work for another Republican candidate in the 2016 campaign. Oh, he's a master, a longtime expert. Dowless, who has been free on a $30,000 bond, is expected to turn himself in following the new charges, except I think he's going to take a hike in the Appalachians, maybe. Does he have a girlfriend in South America? I would look into it. 6 of Dowless' alleged co-conspirators were also charged. But Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman told the News and Observer that more indictments may be coming. None of the candidates that Dowless worked for have been charged at this point. There is a large investigation, Freeman said. It involves multiple election cycles, multiple individuals alleged to be involved in this election fraud. According to the indictment, Dowless instructed individuals to sign certifications indicating that they had witnessed the voter vote and properly executed the absentee ballot when they had not, and mailed or instructed others to mail the absentee ballot in such a manner to conceal the fact that the voter had not personally mailed it himself or herself. After the election last November, Harris led Democrat Dan McCready, I think it should be Democratic candidate Dan McCready, please, by about 900 votes, but North Carolina election officials refused to certify the race due to evidence of widespread ballot fraud related to Dowless's work on the campaign. Now, Dowless was hired by the Red Dome Group. Red Dome, red tide, sucking all the oxygen out of everything in that. Okay, we'll forget about that metaphor. Well, that was a consulting firm founded by top Harris aide Andy Yates. At the time of the election, Harris still owed the firm more than $34,000 for absentee ballot work that Dowless did for the campaign. Absentee ballot work? What? During an election board hearing earlier this year, workers paid by Dowless testified that they were paid to illegally collect absentee ballots from voters in rural areas and fill them out with votes for Dowless's candidates. Documents obtained by the board found that just 8 people had signed off as witnesses on more than 150 ballots, including 3 people who signed as witnesses on more than 40 ballots each. The prosecutor overseeing the case, Freeman, previously said that Dowless operatives may have also destroyed more than 1,000 ballots. Now, Mark Harris's son, John Harris, a federal prosecutor in North Carolina, testified that he had expressed concerns about Dowless to his father. The younger Harris told the election board that he had seen dubious absentee voter data from a 2016 race in the same district that suggested Dowless was a shady character. In 2016, Dowless worked for Todd Johnson, who ran against Harris and incumbent Representative Robert Pittenger in the Republican primary. Johnson received 98% of the absentee ballot vote in Bladen County, the center of the Dowless operation. After Harris hired Dowless for the 2018 campaign, Harris won 96% of the absentee vote in Bladen County in the Republican primary. John Harris told his father in an email sent before Dowless was hired, the key thing that I'm fairly certain they do that is illegal is that they collect the completed absentee ballots and mail them at once. The way they pop up in batches at the Board of Elections makes me believe that. Well, Mark Harris hired Dallas anyway, because he liked the way that he did his work. Mark Harris, who has claimed he did not know about Dallas's past, ultimately called for a new election during the election board hearing and ultimately decided to not run in the ensuing special election. The 9th district seat in Congress has been vacant since Pittenger left office in January. Oliver Willis of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Violent right-wing hate crimes are on the rise during Trump's presidency, a new report released on Monday revealed. The Report to the Nation, a 2019 fact book on hate and extremism, was released by the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino. I think the report comes from California State U. It's not about hate and extremism at Cal State San Bernardino. Let's make that clear. Hate crimes in 30 of America's largest cities rose 9% in 2018 to a decade high of 2009, the study revealed. Data shows hate crimes increasing from 1,730 incidents in 2016 to 2009. Wow, that's quite a jump. And the increases happened while overall crime in America has declined. White nationalism, far-right extremism continue to be the most ascendant brand of hate crime, the study noted. The study's authors also reported that the overwhelming majority of ideological murders in 2018 were by white nationalists and far-right soul assailants, those lone dogs, lone wolves, who attacked around the midterm elections. The study found that homicides motivated by white supremacy have gone up 466% from 3 killings in 2016 to 13 in 2017 and 17 in 2018. The most common victims for hate crime reported to police in major cities in 2018 were African Americans, Jews, and gays, the study noted. Jews were the direct target of half of the biased extremist homicides in 2018 in the worst year ever for anti-Semitic killings in the U.S. Now let's remember 11 people were shot and murdered at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in October of 2018 by a shooter yelling anti-Semitic slurs, and I still hear some people from, shall we say, right-wing groups who argue we can't really tell if it was anti-Semitic, though. Despite the data in the study and other reports that echo its conclusions, Trump and his fellow Republicans have focused their rhetoric on groups like Antifa. Consideration is being given to declaring Antifa the gutless radical left-whack jobs who go around hitting only non-fighting people over the heads with baseball bats. A major organization of terror, Trump wrote last Saturday. Now, the study noted, while there were crimes and assaults committed by Antifa or hard left adherents, there were no fatalities by their adherents in 2018 or 2017. In fact, the only fatality ever occurred where Antifa was involved when a neo-Nazi accidentally shot another neo-Nazi while he was trying to shoot Antifa. While pushing anti-Antifa rhetoric, Trump shut down a program within the Department of Homeland Security tasked with monitoring and investigating domestic terror threats. Trump has consistently insisted right-wing terrorism is not a problem. His fellow Republicans have adopted much of the same posture and refused to hold hearings on the right-wing terror threat when they had control of the House. Right-wing extremism has a growing body count behind it, and Republicans are ignoring the deadly threat to millions of vulnerable Americans. Martin of Share Blue Media brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. First-hand accounts of the wretched conditions of border facilities caused the acting Customs and Border Protection Chief to melt down during a Tuesday Senate hearing. The men and women of Customs and Border Protection are not running concentration camps, Mark Morgan, the acting chief of the agency, insisted during a hearing with the Senate Homeland Security Committee. CB officials are not making those in our custody drink from toilets, nor denying them access to toothbrushes. That is simply not true, Morgan said. In his testimony, Morgan questioned the veracity of first-hand accounts of conditions at some facilities, essentially accusing several members of Congress of lying. During a visit to border facilities in early July, Representatives Judy Chu, a Democrat of California, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democrat from New York, spoke about women saying they were told by border agents to drink out of a toilet if they were thirsty. The conditions are far worse than we ever could have imagined, Representative Madeline Dean, a Democrat of Pennsylvania, wrote after visiting one facility. 15 women in their 50s and 60s sleeping in a small concrete cell, no running water, weeks without showers, all of them separated from their families. Stephen Miller, we're not just trying to impeach Trump, Pence, Kavanaugh et al., Stephen Miller. I will make it the rest of my life's work to make sure you are hauled off to The Hague to face crimes against humanity. And if I am unable to fulfill that task within my lifetime, I'm sure that the progeny of my recently passed progeny will take up the task. I'm sure of it. But rather than focus on the people in detention living in horrible conditions, Morgan insisted that reports of overcrowded and unsanitary conditions at border facilities are a problem for the real victims in this situation. And who are those real victims? Morgan and his staff. The reports are demoralizing for CBP staff and deteriorate the public's understanding and perception of the situation at the border, Morgan claimed. I added the crying part. Children draw pictures of themselves in cages. One child complained of being hungry all the time. A medical doctor compared detention camps holding children to torture facilities. In April, Representative Nanette Berrigan, a Democrat of California, described visiting a tent city near the El Paso, Texas border and feeling ill because of the stench. I was really taken aback by the smell. I was in there for 5 minutes and I just became nauseated. I hate to say it. Even inspectors with DHS blasted the Trump administration for dangerous, overcrowded conditions that they described as being so bad it was a ticking time bomb. Trump's own Department of Homeland Security. Yet, Trump officials like Morgan continually downplay the conditions of the facilities. Trump's pick to take over ICE, Matt Albence, once described facilities holding children to summer camps. Well, I'm sure it is. Oh, do you have the Arbeit macht frei plaque over that summer camp? Do you? I bet they will. With Morgan claiming members of Congress are lying about what they saw, and he desperately wants the media to stop reporting on conditions of the border facilities because those reports apparently hurt his feelings. Let's continue to hurt his feelings, shall we? All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, the new rule of Fight Club. 2 decades after that film comes a strange, dark comedy that begins like The Karate Kid, takes a turn through the aforementioned, and ends up in pretty much straight-up horror. Our protagonist is Casey, a single, introverted, dachshund-owning accountant who's assaulted by a masked motorcycle gang one night while returning home from buying dog food. After shopping for a pistol in a wonderfully sardonic scene in a gun shop, he decides instead to enroll in a local dojo for karate lessons. It's at this point that we meet the teacher, the sensei, who takes him under his wing, coolly intertwining instruction with pseudo-Eastern platitudes tailored to Casey's desire to, as he puts it, become what he had feared. If deadpan can be brought off with intensity, Jesse Eisenberg's Casey does it. The character, though in his 30s, seems unsocialized and vulnerable, primed, as it turns out, to soak up the poison philosophy of Sensei, turning Casey from shy and retiring to taciturn and dangerous. Sensei is played by the often overlooked Alessandro Nivola from American Hustle and Face Off. He's responsible for most of the unpeeling of the onion as the film gets darker and darker. Pivotal to both plot and commentary in this one is British actress Imogen Poots as the only female in the dojo. She's second only to Sensei skill-wise, but is otherwise disrespected. The movie isn't set at any particular time or place, and cues from the set are either careless or intentionally confusing. Also, you'll note the deliberate delivery of the dialogue, which is reminiscent of a surreal stage play. The art of self-defense combines suspense and humor and earns at least a brown belt for its send-up of pervasive toxic masculinity. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christine Herman.
Anyone who's ever been with a toddler can tell you. If they're upset about something, they will let you know. Scientists have been aware of this behavior, but what they did not know until now is that if babies as young as 1.5 years old see someone else being treated unfairly, they expect the leader, the parent, or the caregiver in that situation to step in and do something about it.
Babies evaluate others constantly.
Renee Bayarjon is a psychologist at the University of Illinois. She led the research on babies expecting fairness.
When these transgressions occur, babies evaluate parents and other leaders and say, well, you saw this transgression. You know this is not fair. Are you going to do something about it? If you don't, then you are shirking your responsibilities, and it makes you less of a leader, less of a parent.
That's right. Babies are judging you. Bayarjon says it seems babies are born with these expectations of what a leader is and how they should behave. The work is in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The researchers used bear puppets to perform skits for 17-month-old babies who sat comfortably on a parent's lap. In one scenario, the puppet leader intervenes when one of the other puppets hogs all the toys. In another, the leader does nothing to address the injustice. Bayarjon says such inaction that allows an unfair situation to persist bothers the babies, and they stare longer at that leader as if waiting for him to act. In puppet scenarios when there was no clear leader, babies did not have this expectation of an intervention.
It shows that they expect a leader to not just use power for his or her own self-interest, but to use their authority to regulate the morality of their followers.
Alan Fisk is an anthropologist who studies human relationships at the University of California in Los Angeles. He was not involved in this study. He says many people underestimate what babies are capable of understanding and figuring out about the world, since they're just barely learning how to walk and talk.
And so you might think they didn't understand the world because, they don't seem to be very competent at doing things in the world. But, amazing things are happening in their minds, and they understand an enormous amount.
Bayarjon says the study supports the idea that babies have an innate understanding about power dynamics that then gets shaped by the culture they grow up in. Maybe we should lower the voting age to 17 months. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christine Herman.
He seems sorry.
We very clearly told him not to look up there.
I'm honestly impressed that he was able to do it.
Right? What, did he balance on that big chair?
Yeah, I guess he'll just know what his gifts are this year.
I really thought we had hidden them well.
If they can find their presents, they can find a gun.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day, 8 kids and teens are unintentionally killed or injured by loaded and unlocked guns. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and End Family Fire.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. Occasional aches and pains are an expected part of life, but for many people, pain is a constant companion. Dr. Chad Helmick is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to manage chronic pain. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, how many people in the U.S. suffer from chronic pain?
In 2016, 50 million adults had chronic pain, which is pain on most or every day in the past 6 months. More interesting, though, is that 20 million people have high-impact chronic pain, which is chronic pain that also limits their work or life activities on most or every day in the past 6 months. This is a problem because chronic pain is associated not only with symptoms, but with anxiety and depression, reduced quality of life, and the risk of opioid problems.
What are the most common causes of chronic pain?
The most common causes generally relate to bones and joints, like low back pain and arthritis, but there are many other causes: headaches, sickle cell disease, fibromyalgia, surgery and injuries, and many, many others.
Is chronic pain more common in any particular group of people?
Yes, it occurs at all ages, but it's more common in older middle-aged adults and in the oldest old, 85 and older. It's also more common in women, poor people, and those who live in rural areas.
How is chronic pain treated?
Well, the first thing to do is to get a diagnosis, which can help guide treatment. But the thinking about chronic pain now is that it becomes a chronic disease by itself, regardless of the cause, and that can cause significant problems. The real goal in management is to have a manageable level of pain, not to get rid of all pain. There's several steps that can be taken, and these are sometimes difficult to do because of barriers to access. But it makes sense to do the simplest and safest things first. And these are non-drug steps. Things like physical activity. Walking is perfectly good to help reduce pain. Also, self-management education can give you some confidence in managing chronic pain when you're on your own. There's also physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, better sleep, which usually means less alcohol, and seeing a chiropractor or getting biofeedback and massage. If that's not enough, non-opioid drugs like Tylenol or Motrin and Advil or naproxen or Aleve can help. If those don't work, then it's time to consider something stronger. Sometimes that's opioids, but there's not great evidence that opioids are good for long-term pain in most people.
Do you have any advice for people suffering from chronic pain?
Well, it's important to work with a variety of providers who are working together to help you. The goal, again, is manageable pain so you can live a productive life. This can include physical therapy, most people can walk, to treat any underlying depression or anxiety, and to avoid further injuries. Finally, the National Pain Strategy is laying out a strategic roadmap to improve pain management system in this country.
Where can listeners get more information about managing chronic pain?
Listeners can go to the NIH website, nih.gov, and type in National Pain Strategy.
Thanks, Chad. I've been talking today with Dr. Chad Helmick about ways to manage chronic pain. If you're experiencing daily pain, talk with your healthcare provider to ensure you have the correct diagnosis and know how to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
In its war on immigrants, the Trump administration has struck again.
Soy Javier Luengo Garrido, organizador de la ACLU de Massachusetts, y este es el Minuto de Libertades Civiles con el abogado de ACLU, Bill Newman.
In mid-July, the Trump administration announced rules that, as a practical matter, if and when they take effect, would prohibit any migrant from Central America from even being considered for asylum in the United States, no matter how horrific the persecution, the violence, the extortion, no matter how horrifying the threats of rape and murder against that person and their family. The new rules would deny a migrant, a refugee, the right to apply for asylum in the United States unless that person has applied for asylum in a country neighboring his own or a country he or she has passed through. That Trump administration requirement would violate the law of the United States, which says those refugees, those migrants have a right to seek and apply for asylum. And it violates international law and treaties. And it's an utterly unmeetable requirement. There is, however, hope that this can be defeated. Congress, not the president, has the authority to enact laws. And so the ACLU and many other immigrant rights groups have sued to stop this rule from taking effect.
El Minuto de Libertades Civiles es posible gracias a ACLU, porque la libertad no puede defenderse a sí misma.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1938. At 8:30 in the morning, union members gathered at the port of Hilo, Hawaii. They were there to protest the docking of a ship with non-union workers, the SS Wailea. The workers came from many unions, including the international longshoremen and warehousemen. 1938 was an intensive year for organizing on the Hawaiian docks. Estimates of crowds of workers gathering that day were as many as 800. The workers chanted, "The more we get together, 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 the more we get together, the better we'll be." They were met by police who used tear gas, fire hoses, bayonets, and bullets to break up the peaceful demonstration. Harry Kamaku, a Chinese Hawaiian labor leader, recounted what he saw, saying, "They shot us down like a herd of sheep. We didn't have a chance. The firing kept up for about 5 minutes. They just kept pumping buckshot and bullets into our bodies. They shot men in the back as they ran. They shot men who were trying to help wounded comrades and women. 50 people were injured due to this brutality. Fortunately, no one lost their life." The events at Hilo became a rallying cry for workers throughout the islands. Joe Kiali Alio, a longshoreman from Honolulu, recalled, "Now these guys would come down here from Hilo, and they would mingle around, and they would talk to us. They shared what they witnessed that day on the docks, and then challenged the Honolulu workers to join the fight. The workers from Hilo said, the Honolulu port has to organize. We can't do it alone." The University of Hawaii's Center for Labor Education and Research has developed a documentary about the events at Hilo as part of their Rice and Roses series. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, a little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Expecting a high in the mid-90s, which means it could just as easily be in the upper 90s. Oh, I think it may be. Overnight lows will be in the low 60s. Winds are currently out of the west-southwest, a negligible 1 to 2 miles per hour, which we affectionately refer to as light and variable. We'll be picking up out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, as it has been doing this time of year, and will then shift out of the northwest tonight, remaining at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow should be light and variable winds out of an indeterminate direction right now. Grass pollen is moderate. The air quality index surprisingly is good at 14 parts per million, which means somehow the smoke is not in my little area, and that's a good thing. The daytime UV index is very high at 8. Barometric pressure is rising at 29.82 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 72%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. London is 78 and partly cloudy. Paris is 82 and sunny. Rome is 88 and sunny with a heat advisory. Kiev is 68 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 88 and fair. Hong Kong is 78 with rain. Tokyo is 86 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 54 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 58 cloudy with an air quality alert for the smoke that blew and is blowing from our wildfires down to there. And New York, New York is 81 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Parvaz of Think Progress brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The United States will officially leave the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, otherwise known as the INF, tomorrow, Friday, marking what some worry will be the resumption of a new arms race between Russia and the United States. With the INF now essentially undone, 32 years of non-proliferation efforts will likely be reversed. In 1987, the INF Treaty prompted the U.S. and Russia, then known as the Soviet Union, to dispose of nearly 2,700 conventional and nuclear weapons with a range of between 310 and 3,417 miles. The United States and NATO have accused Russia of violating the treaty with its ground-launched cruise missiles, which they say breach the limits of the INF. Russia maintains that the missiles comply with the limits of the INF, flying at a maximum range of only 298 miles, but this has been difficult to confirm. At the same time, Moscow has accused the U.S. of being in violation of the INF by building NATO missile defense systems in Romania. Non-proliferation experts nevertheless maintain that the United States is in compliance with the INF, whereas Russia is not. I think that given Russia's flagrant violation of the treaty, withdrawal was a justifiable step, but that's not the same thing as saying that it was a smart or prudent step, said Kingston Rife, Director of Disarmament and Threat Reduction Policy at the Arms Control Association. In fact, the United States seems intent on developing 3 new weapons, all of which would surpass the range limits set by the INF. I wonder who wanted that to get fast-tracked through. The Defense Department has already requested $96 million for the fiscal year 2020 to fund the development of the 3 new cruise missiles and ballistic missile systems, all conventional weapons, which are not being developed to be nuclear capable, so they say.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Alan Pike of Think Progress brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Few, if any, of the 147 million Americans screwed by Equifax in its 2017 data breach will actually see the $125 checks that were touted in a settlement announced just on July 22nd. The Federal Trade Commission warned yesterday, Wednesday. The announcement set off wide ripples of media coverage. Many of those stories frame the matter in terms that are extraordinarily friendly to both the corporate behemoth that allowed the data breach to occur and the government regulator that's ostensibly tasked with safeguarding consumer interest in the wake of this malfeasance. Let the lesser subtleties go unnoticed. The framing of the story is clear. It's your fault you're not getting the money, or it's your neighbor's fault, or perhaps their cousins. All customers asking for the pittance you rightly deserve are just ruining it for each other. So you're not getting your money, just like they planned it. All right, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. In fact, we're going to meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. That's right, folks, because we are all night hawks in the diner of life. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.